Okay, I'm standing here beside Róisín White, who is this year's winner of the Dummy Award, with her amazing and fascinating project, Lay Her Down Upon Her Back. Exactly, yeah. And on the other side, I have Gloria Oyarzabal, who is a previous winner of the Dummy Award and part of the jury. And Gloria is going to read the motivation. So I will hand this over to you. And we will actually start working with the book exactly after the festival. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. And congratulations, Róisín. It was super exciting to cross your project in the jury, and we're all very, very excited with it. So on behalf of my companions of the jury, I will read the motivation letter that we shared when it was announced. Where meaning collapses. As soon as we open the first spreads in Lay Her Down Upon Her Back, we fall headlong down through the history of illness and are then brought back to the present again. Through black and white pages of archival material, drawings, and staged photographs, Róisín White shapes the narrative about outdated diagnoses of the female body and its pain. We are in seemingly wordless state, with ingrained structures lacking of a language to describe what is happening. And then suddenly, in the middle of the story, something breaks it off, and in front of us we see motley, colorful, floral pattern wallpaper, as if crying out amidst all the black and white. But in the next spread, everything is silent again, and we continue to fall. Congratulations again, and I wish you a good path with
Thank you.
this wonderful festival.
Okay, so now, Róisín, you are going to present this project. Yeah, and as I said before, really looking forward to work with you. And next year, we will have hopefully, I think so, we will have the release of her book. So stay tuned.
I need this one. I don't need. I have one. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Róisín White. I am a visual artist based in Ireland. My pronouns are she, her. And just before I talk about the project, I want to just acknowledge, I will be talking about the history of women's healthcare. I want to acknowledge that I will be using the word woman to talk about bodies who've been socialized as female, especially in this historical context. But I acknowledge that not all women have a uterus. So this project, as I said, is this going to? Yes. That's me. I've always been a bit of into photography. So Lay Her Down Upon Her Back is a work that looks at the history of a very specific piece of medical treatment. It originated in the 1890s in America. Its creator, its pioneer, was a doctor called Silas Weir Mitchell. He's known also as the father of neurology, which is a little bit unsettling considering what this treatment was. So the way I came to this work was I was interested in this idea of, what happens when a woman lies down? What are the different reasons that a woman is lying down on her back? We have, there's resting. Perhaps there's intimacy with a partner, with themselves. But there's also, it's a submissive pose. It can be seen as one. You're on your back for various medical examinations. It's often encouraged for you to be on your back during childbirth, but also the idea of being submissive perhaps for other reasons. So this brought me down this thread of why there's still this idea that when a woman is unwell, when she's tired, there's this sense that she should just go to bed, take to the bed. She has women's problems. She's up there. She's going to rest, and we won't bother her. We won't ask her how she is. To just be off, grin and bear it. And I was pulling at threads. I didn't exactly know where this was going to go, and I spoke to my cousin, who's not an artist. I talked about this idea of just resting, being told to rest, which brought me to this short story called The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which is a fictionalized tale about the rest cure. It was written in 1892, to give you a sense of the time period. And the story is about a woman who was forced to, or encouraged to, take to her bed. It was in an attic bedroom where she would be told to stay there until she was better. Essentially, it was forced isolation until whatever was wrong with her had disappeared or she appeared better. But this isolation makes her go into a sense of madness, and she starts to see things in the wallpaper. And it becomes this kind of catch-22 question. Was she unwell? Was she suffering with mental illness beforehand? Or was it this treatment that ended up bringing her to that point? So I was really intrigued by this idea of the rest cure. What exactly was it? So it kind of has four main treatments within it. It was a catch-all for, as I said, anything that was wrong with women. And the first one was enforced bed rest. You had to be lying down. You were supposed to ask for permission to even roll over. The idea was you were supposed to be completely sedentary so that the body could heal itself. You were fed a meat-rich, protein-rich diet. So you could be, for the months that you were in bed rest, you could be eating just beef and eggs. 12 eggs a day. What could be the harm in that? Because the idea was that the larger you were, the healthier you were. A lot of women who were prescribed this treatment were diagnosed with being bloodless, which today we would probably just call anemic. You were not allowed any stimulants. And stimulants in Weir Mitchell's case, his idea, were reading, sewing, or talking to your family. They were seen as too stimulating for you to be able to heal yourself. And the last one was originally massage, but that was too strenuous on the doctor, so they turned to electrocution to stimulate the muscles because they were atrophying from lack of movement. So this was something that you could be prescribed for 3 weeks, 3 months, 9 months, which had obviously a detrimental effect on the body. This complete lack of movement and lack of a varied and nutritious diet, and the isolation and not being able to do anything except lie there and think about your own illness quite obviously would have a negative effect on the patient. So this was a treatment for what they would have called at the time hysteria, for anemia, for anxiety, for nervousness, or cursed with the nerves, as they would have said, but as well as for women who were were having trouble conceiving, or for postpartum depression. A lot of these were not terms they had at the time, so it was just general nerves. And this treatment, it originated in America and then sort of traveled eastwards to the UK and then into Europe, where it was almost exclusively used in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. It was used for women who had problems conceiving, but also during pregnancy. And it was that was the only thing it was used for, this side of the Atlantic. And then in 1930, my original research said it was discredited in the 1930s, but I, out of curiosity, Googled it today, and I found, where has it gone now? In a 1999, so 23 years ago, a review of the treatment, was still being used, but they had said that it was completely lacking in data to show that it had any effect on women at all. However, 20% of pregnant women in the US are prescribed for rest, despite growing data that it shows that it can be dangerous and unethical. That is today that we're still using this. And despite the fact that they've called it dangerous, unethical, completely lacking in data that it works, even though that was, I've completely forgotten about my slideshow, sorry. Despite that, even if we know that it doesn't work, a lot of the attitudes towards women that this treatment built upon are still there. So if you have been sent to bed for 3 months, you're not going to be happy about that. So, but the problem was that the doctor said you should anticipate this. They will say that they're not happy. They will say that this is uncomfortable. They will say that this isn't working, and you have to push past that because you can't believe them. The doctor who pioneered this treatment said that women spoil their nerves like they spoil their children. He had a complete disregard for the opinions of women, and any sense of complaint, he said, should be completely ignored. And this idea that women's opinions, or not opinions, their statements about their symptoms, we still see that today. In a conversation we just had 10 minutes ago about how women with endometriosis are often not believed. It's the idea that you just have a heavy period. You take a paracetamol, go home, you'll be fine. When actually it's a debilitating disease, and in the average time for diagnosis is 6 to 9 years in Ireland, which is so long that by the time you seek treatment, it's often irreversible. So these ideas that have come from the rest cure, this is one particular example with endometriosis, but in the context of when I was making this work, so this I was making between 2017 and 2018, 2019. In Ireland, during that time, we were having a referendum on the right to access to abortion healthcare, which had previously been completely illegal. Now, while I don't talk about that in the project at all, these were conversations that were happening all the time, and how, again, it was the lack of access to treatment for women, the fact that we were still you had to go to another country to seek this kind of healthcare. And it was this attitude that women didn't know what was best for them, that we should listen to someone else, that they would know what was better. And despite this, there are so many examples where the complete lack of considering women within different medical settings becomes really evident. There's huge numbers of medications that in medical trials are not tested on women, had not been tested on women, or it skews in a way where it could be 80% male bodies being tested compared to 20% female, and that disparity is even larger when you consider the racial disaggregation of those tests. It means that there was pain medication that they deemed that it didn't work because they only tested it on men. And then by chance, women were tested and they went, oh, this does work because because of our estrogen levels, we metabolize things differently. And that was by accident that this was discovered, because no one thought that that would make a difference. In Ireland, there's a wonderful Irish writer called Sinead Gleeson, and she writes personal essays about her life, but very much about her journey through the Irish healthcare system, through pregnancy, through her cancer treatment, through osteoporosis and having hip replacements. And at every point, she talks about a complete lack of compassion from her, for the most part, male doctors. And the book sheds so much light on this problem that it is now mandatory reading for first-year medical students in Trinity College in Dublin, because apparently they didn't understand this beforehand. As well as those medical students were also, not even medical students, medical doctors who were working in our hospitals were being encouraged to take acting classes so that they would appear more compassionate to their students. So back to this. As I said, I worked on this between 2017, 2019. It kind of kept taking on more and more different threads, mostly based on the rest cure, but then taking other avenues down the history of hysteria and Dr. Charcot in Paris, and other sort of Irish-specific stories like the Magdalen laundries and the mother and baby homes, and another particular scandal called the symphysiotomy scandal, which happened around the 1940s in Irish maternity hospitals. So every time I kind of reached what felt like an end point in the project, I would make a dummy. For me, making photo book dummies is a way of getting my thoughts together. It meant that for this project, I ended up with 11 dummies, I think, along the way. Some of those were just, I'm 6 months into the project. I don't know how, I can't read it on the screen. It doesn't make sense to me as just a selection of images. I have to start putting it in a narrative for me to realize where the holes are. And one of the big parts of this project was using found photographs. So a lot of the images are my own, and then a lot of them are images like this, which come from medical textbooks. I haven't used archives. I've been using medical textbooks from sort of 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. They're a strange genre of book. They're not meant for people who are training to be doctors, but they're not a simple how to do first aid book either. They're somewhere in the middle. And they have these wonderful illustrations because they were too text heavy, so they throw in these incredible photographs. So I've been using a lot of those, and for myself, I feel kind of okay about using photographs of women that have already been published. To me, it's like I'm not the one who's put them into the public sphere. That's already happened. I can't get past that. It's not the only image. It's not like finding something at a flea market and it's come from someone's personal album and leaked into the public sphere. These are already out there. And just to refer to the previous slide, the drawing is also a really big part of the way I think about making. It's all. One of the challenges for this project was bringing the notebook into the work and bringing it onto the wall, like in the gallery. It's kind of, those drawings are sort of trying to manifest this sort of stress in the body. I found a definition of hysteria as hysteria is the bodily manifestation of extreme stress. So it was trying to get those sensations out onto the page. And then this was just installing the solo exhibition I had at the Library Project in Dublin in 2018, where it was really important to me that those drawings weren't lost, that they didn't stay in the notebooks. So they very kindly let me paint all over the walls. And this was it. And this gallery has a challenge that it is a gallery for the opening night, and then it becomes a bookshop again. So everything is hung at a kind of particular level, because the next morning there'll be tables the whole way around. So it's a wonderful space because it has so much footfall, but it does have limitations. So this is another way that we presented some of the notebooks. It was printing them and mounting them on wood, so that they were kind of objects, and you still felt that they had an importance. And like some of the previous artists who've been speaking, every time I show the work, I want to show it in a different way. I don't make it easy for myself. I like to be playing with the space, making it site-specific. And for this presentation, I made a little bit of new work, and I turned one of the photographs into a carpet. Because I wanted to start bringing the domestic space more prevalent in the work. The idea of the confinement in a bedroom, which is strange talking about that now when we actually all kind of know what it's like to be confined in one house, one room, for a long period of time. At the time, it was really alien to me. But also the sense of, the woman disappears into the house, the domestic space. So the idea of, walking over this female figure that's blending into the floor was kind of, maybe it's a bit heavy-handed, but it was fun because people didn't want to step on it. So I actually made a previous dummy a few years ago where we worked with an editor and a designer, and it was a very interesting process. It was the process was just to make a dummy. It was never to be published, and it probably taught me more about what I didn't want than what I did want. It was really good experience, but it was just another step along the way to get to the one I have today, which I even don't think that one's finished, which is probably a good place to be. That's some of the previous one. And there's all the dummies to date. I really enjoy this. While it can be really painful and really hard and a lot of work, this is the process of turning a project into a book is how I make sense of it. Even if I never have the intention of sharing it with anyone, every project I've made, every body of work I've made exists as an artist's book in my studio, even if I never show it to anyone. It's always been a very important part of the process. That's kind of it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience?
No.
Well, then thank you very much. And now slowly we will be moving to Pecha Kucha, slowly into the fast.
I have a copy if anyone wants to have a look at it.
Yes, I think that's actually, because it's just taking too much.